Hi, in this video I'd like to show you what I found in east and northeast Mexico. This is for my friends in Mexico. Starting kind of in the more northern area, it's a little drier. You have all these spider web patterns. Lots of grids and spider web patterns. Some broad cleared areas, lots of line work, lots of grids. Just about everywhere you look. Here's a nice radiating pattern like you see in South Texas and also in Brazil. Here's some stripes and some big broad cleared areas where they were getting ready to do more. It's another example of kind of making a face out of a peninsula in a lake, showing that these lakes are prehistoric. It's another lake. It looks like they were modifying the landscape to look like something. If you get in real close, you see that there's actually this little spider web pattern out there, and you can see the other lines and colors. And another area where it's really bizarre and colorful. It's like they were taking those dark areas and getting ready to use them in different glyphs. Again, lots of fancy line work. And go in close and look at these lines. They're really straight and well made, and anywhere from about 20 to 40 feet across. Even out in this Badlands, straight lines going right across all the features out here. Go in close, you can see how they stop at the edge of these little canyons and pick up on the other side, but they form a nice straight line. This one was 2-something miles long. Again, go in close and look. That's what these lines look like. Big, broad, 20 meters, 30 meters across. Drew out some of them. That's just a few of them going in one direction. They go all different directions. And some broad patterns in the landscape. Again, get into more agricultural areas. Big, broad patterns in the landscape. Stripes. Grid patterns. Radiating patterns. Grid patterns. And this quite amazing glyph here. Look at the perspective of that thing. Look in the dark area in the middle. You can see how they were outlining a face. They would draw the outline and then an eye line and a nose line. It's common in these facial glyphs. It's just amazing. The perspective they got on that, it's just freaky. Some more really wild looking agricultural areas in the shapes of different glyphs. Guy wearing a helmet. Zoom out a little bit. The whole landscape made into this wild system of glyphs. Get in close and you can see that they were probably making some sort of bird head glyphs. Look at some more striped areas. Some more broad cleared areas with grids. Another cleared area, kind of like the Nazca line. Just some weird grid on the side of a hill. More grids. And then see the reservoirs in there in each of those grids. Again, the whole landscape gridded off. And then they took that and made wild patterns out of it. So here's what I'm talking about with our reuse of the prehistoric landscape. I'm pretty sure that this is all, it all lines up with all the line work when you get out to the edges of it. So I'm pretty sure this was all prehistoric, and we're just reusing it. Get in close and look at some of the area that's not impacted as much, and you see the canals running out to the basins in the middle of the fields, which is a common pattern for these irrigation systems. More fields, grids, more and more grids, some really strange glyph. Again, larger glyphs. I think this is a guy sitting in almost like a sled. Zoom out and you can see all the different broad patterns in the upper right where they were getting ready to do more things. Stripes. And this is really interesting one, pretty intricate looking glyph they were working on in a nice square panel or rectangular panel here. And all around it looked like they were getting ready to do more. So this kind of shows the phases of how cleared areas are, what they just started on. Some wild patterns on the landscape. It's just so cool. All this lines up with all the line work. Probably making bird heads out of a bend in a river. There again, looks like a bird. Broad patterns again in the landscape. Looks like a guy facing to the left maybe. Like this one. It's like he's riding in something again. Just more outrageous amounts of line work and cleared areas. So here's a side of a mountain range that looks kind of like the stuff in Brazil where they went right up to one level and they cleared along this line. You can see the line work going all the way up to the top of this cleared area, and some of the disturbance on the side, which may have been the start of a glyph. Flip it over and zoom out and look at this whole mountain range. It has kind of a snake-like look to it, maybe with a figure riding on his back, and it's kind of crazy to think that they would be modifying a whole mountain range, but I think that this was the scale they were working at. You zoom in on what would be the head of this, you can see that it has all this line work on it. So zoom back out and you look at the figure on the back, riding on the back, and you zoom in on him, and it appears to be an outline of a face, again with a line for the eye line and a line at the nose. And that kind of outlines the face. So kind of look at this mountain. There's all these roads and disturbances everywhere. They line up with all this, what I believe to be prehistoric line work. So, and they don't appear to be mines. They don't have big dumps out in front of them. There's not processing sites around. So I'm wondering if these aren't tombs. And they go all the way around the mountain, follow all the roads, and you'll get to places where there's this line of disturbances. So here's one of those disturbed areas, and it appears to have a big boulder right in the middle of it. So again, I'm wondering if that's a tomb there that's being covered up by that rock. I also noticed that if you follow around the layer, there's a chalk layer in the hill here, and that might be why they were, if they were putting tombs in here, they were probably using that softer zone And that's why you kind of get this pattern of disturbances kind of all up on the same layer. You could do the same thing with lots of different minerals. Fluorite and other minerals are pretty soft, so if you found a zone that had that, you could dig into it fairly easily. So here's way up on top of this range of mountains, one of those reservoirs. You zoom in, there's a, look in the upper right corner, there's some sort of structure there. Don't know if that's prehistoric or historic. Also see again white kind of chalky disturbance marks around this hill that I think might be tombs. So if you look, it's all around this hill. Anyway, let's move on to some more stuff. Just off from the side of that hill, all these agricultural fields. And more line work and line work. Kind of getting into some of the greener areas down south, the same thing, broad cleared areas and line work. A lot of parallel fields. Again, I think these are prehistoric land use patterns. And you get areas like this where it's just all crazy. Again, more grid work and cleared areas. Look at this one. I think this might be something like a guy's face and head and a parrot coming down or a bird coming down and biting them on the shoulder. And then if you look at the dark areas, there's also maybe some wing shapes there. So if you go down on the coast, almost, I think this is northern Veracruz area. You get out on kind of this barrier peninsula, and again, you see the same wild pattern. Down still in the greener areas, a lot of gridded off. And then there's this really interesting glyph here. Didn't measure, it's got to be a couple miles. Looking at it different ways. Kind of zoom in and you'll see that it's right on the coast, and right on the coast is this big berm with canals running down the middle of it. This berm is 1,000 feet across, and I'm pretty sure this is a man-made feature. So if you follow the Gulf Coast all the way up into Texas and around, and you'll see the same pattern of prehistoric land use. Some more of this, the dark areas that were left in that probably formed glyphs, and they're getting kind of disturbed probably. Again, maybe some more that were in the process of being made, cleared areas, some more wild patterns, some striped areas, cleared patterns. Again, everything has these angles and lines that they shot in, and all these broad stripes and patterns on it. So if you get out kind of up in the northern part to where the Rio Grande, the Delta, you get all this kind of swampy area here. Again, you see it's all gridded off, and they were actually farming every bit of this all the way out to the ocean. More of it out there in the Delta kind of area. And there's also this, some really nice reservoirs out there. This is real close to the ocean. Grid patterns around, more reservoirs. And if you go all the way out, even these little islands and peninsulas have lines on them. So there you have it. Go into northeast Mexico, and you've got a whole bunch of this line work and glyph work. Agricultural features everywhere. So just like everywhere else.